Today we talk about how long do you have to wait to get pregnant after having a delivery. I'm Dr. Mark Amols, and this is Taco Bout Fertility Tuesday. One of the most common questions I get asked in clinic is, how soon can I get pregnant again? Someone goes through IVF or artificial insemination and gets pregnant. And obviously for those of us who have had infertility, we're worried about getting pregnant again, and especially if we are someone who is a little bit more mature and worried about our ovarian reserve, that's even going to be on our mind even a little bit more. And so the question is, how soon can you get pregnant again? Also, what's the concern about getting pregnant too soon? And are there any things we need to worry about? Now, from the fertility perspective, there's absolutely no time you need to wait to try to get pregnant again. In fact, I would even make the argument that if you needed fertility treatment the first time to get pregnant, you're probably going to need fertility treatment again to get pregnant. We have all heard the case of someone who went through IVF and then got pregnant on their own. But I can assure you that is not very common. And most of the time when that happens, the person who went through IVF probably shouldn't have went through IVF to begin with. And that if they would have just kept trying, they may have just got pregnant. But for the rest of us who have struggled with infertility, when you are ready to have another baby, you really don't need to wait from a fertility perspective. Because again, having to try on your own again makes no sense. You've already been diagnosed with infertility. So the next question then comes, is there a situation where you should wait? And the answer is yes. For those patients who had a vaginal delivery without any major complications, can actually get pregnant right away. Even if you are breastfeeding, you can still try to get pregnant right away. Artificial inseminations and IVF can still be done. However, there are times that breastfeeding can affect your chances of getting pregnant. Although you can try to get pregnant with breastfeeding, one of the issues is that there are certain medications you can't use when you're breastfeeding. So if you're using a protocol that would be harmful for your baby to get, then in that situation, you may want to wait to try to get pregnant because you may benefit from being able to use, let's say, a stronger protocol that the doctor wouldn't feel comfortable to use while you're breastfeeding. Now, it's important to understand that you don't have to not breastfeed. You can keep breastfeeding, and what you can do is build up your milk supply and have it stored. So that way, during the time while you're doing treatment, you can be pumping and dumping the breast milk and using your frozen breast milk. But you just don't want to use the breast milk while you're going through the stimulation to give to your baby if it's not compatible with breastfeeding. Some of the basic medications are, but there are some medications you cannot use while breastfeeding. And so in those situations, you would either want to wait until you're done breastfeeding to go through with fertility treatment, or you would want to use frozen milk that you have built up and then throw away the milk that you are making during the stimulation process. The biggest thing that's going to cause you to delay trying to get pregnant is if you require a C-section. And that's because when you have a C-section, they are cutting the uterus, which then makes the uterus weaker and can potentially rupture when you're pregnant in the next pregnancy. And for that reason, we recommend anyone who had a C-section to wait at least 18 months between deliveries. Now, this doesn't mean you have to wait 18 months to get pregnant, because a pregnancy is 9 months long. So that just means you need to wait 9 months to get pregnant. And so this becomes difficult because if you're doing something like artificial inseminations, it could take 2 or 3 inseminations to get pregnant. So if you start on the 9th month, you may not even get pregnant till the 11th or 12th month. And so it can be a little bit frustrating because you don't want to wait that long. Now, when it comes to IVF, you can do everything in the IVF process, such as getting eggs, going through the stimulation. It's just you wouldn't put an embryo back until you were that 9 months. Now, why did I bring up the part about going through stimulation? Well, because if you're 26 years of age
and you have to wait 9 months before putting another baby back, you're not going to have to worry about your egg reserve becoming too poor. However, if you are more mature, let's say 42, you're going to be turning 43 soon, you may not have time to wait
to retrieve more eggs. And so what you would do is you would go through the retrieval process right away and make your embryos. And then when you were at that 9-month mark, at that point, you would then do the transfer. Now, what's important to understand is this is for classical C-sections and Pfennestiel C-sections. As a matter of fact, some C-sections that are classical where they make an incision up and down, the doctor may even recommend waiting longer if there's some major concerns about healing. Cesarean sections aren't the only concern either. If you have a myomectomy, which is a surgery where they remove fibroids from your uterus, and it's extensive, or if they get into the cavity, your doctor also may recommend not trying to get pregnant for a period of time from the surgery, because again, the concern would be uterine rupture. And that goes true for almost any surgery on the uterus. Your doctor is always going to let you know afterwards if you should be able to get pregnant right away or if you need to give time to let the uterus heal. Uterine rupture is a very dangerous situation, not just for the baby, but also for mom. I've had many patients beg me to let them put an embryo back early because they didn't want to wait. And I explained to them that it's just too dangerous. And although I've never had a patient of mine have uterine rupture directly due to a C-section, I have seen people rupture due to surgeries and other things. Unfortunately, in those cases, either the baby died, and in one of the cases, both the baby and the mother died. And so I bring this up because I think it's important to understand how dangerous this really is and why it is important to wait the time recommended by your physician. In summary, there is no reason to wait due to fertility reasons. You can always try to get pregnant. If you have a vaginal delivery, there really are no restrictions. But if you had a C-section or if you had a surgery on your uterus that may have compromised the health of your uterus, then you are going to want to wait at least 18 months from delivery from a C-section, and your surgeon will let you know how long you need to wait to try to get pregnant from your surgery. Hopefully this podcast was informative for some of you, and hopefully for some of you who are not pregnant but they're going to be pregnant, now you have this information for your future pregnancies. Just a reminder that I do have a TikTok out there under the name Amols MD, where I talk about similar topics but in a much shorter time span of a minute or less. I always appreciate everyone who listens to us and tells their friends about us, and as always, if you really love us, please go out and give us a 5-star review. That will just help us get known more by other people. I really enjoy doing these and look forward to talking to you again next week on Taco Bout Fertility Tuesday.